Hi everyone, I hope you are doing well. When I was young, my mother was waking us up every morning before going to school to buy bread and milk. We took turns, my sisters and I, and every morning it was the same scene. One of us would push my mother away, saying it was the other one's turn. What happened next depended entirely on my mother's mood. If she was gentle, we all went back to sleep. If she was too strict, it was a fight between the girls. But when she was exactly at the right state, firm, calm, and determined, one of us got up, the right one, at the right moment, without argument. Seeds during germination do exactly the same thing. They have a chemical signal that works exactly like my mother's mood. Too weak, the seed stays dormant. Too strong, it destroys itself from the inside. But in the perfect window, it wakes up every time, without exception, for 300 million years. My mother didn't always have that precision. Seeds do. Today, we're going to talk about the fascinating life of seeds and their constituting proteins. A seed is not just a small, hard thing you plant in the ground. It's a living organism on pause. Inside, there is an embryo, the future plant in miniature, and around it, stalks. Just like you would pack precisely calculated supplies for a polar expedition to survive until you reach your destination. These reserves are made of three things: sugars, fats, and proteins. And today we are focusing on proteins because they are fascinating and because they are one of the prio for humans too. Think of those storage proteins as Lego bricks carefully packed inside a box. The seed produces and stores them during its formation on the mother plant. They serve no purpose right away. They wait for the right moment. You consume them every day without knowing it. The gluten in your bread, the proteins in your tofu, or in your chickpeas. These are exactly the storage proteins the seed had stored for its own survival. And understanding how they are formed, protected, and used, that is one of the major questions in seed science today. But there is something fascinating. A seed can wait for years, decades sometimes, without eating, being active, and staying alive. This is called dormancy. And if you want a modern image, this is exactly the principle of Bitcoin. A precious value stored in a digital account, accessible only with the right signal at the right moment. Nature invented this 300 million years ago. It's called a seed, except that seeds don't consume electricity and don't pollute. It reminds me of an anecdote. Lotus seeds have germinated after 1,200 years. Seeds found in Egyptian tombs were still viable. How is this possible? The seed almost completely dehydrates. It goes from 80 to 90% water down to just 5 to 15% residual water, just enough to preserve its cell membranes and DNA, but too little for any biological process. Metabolism is suspended, its outer envelope hardens, the storage proteins remain intact, compacted, locked inside their box. The lock is set, the seed waits for its signal. The signal is water. As soon as the seed rehydrates, the germination process begins. But if we look at what truly happens inside during this germination, it's even more surprising. You might think it's simple. Water enters, proteins are released, but no, the seed doesn't open just like that. It first checks that conditions are truly okay to start, And this is exactly where my mother's mood come back into the picture. You remember, not too gentle, not too strict, just the right balance. This is precisely what the seed maintains at the molecular level, constantly thanks to two teams working in opposite directions. One team that produces the activation signal, called the ROS, and a team of molecular firefighters that neutralizes the excess. It's the balance of power between these two teams that determines whether germination happens or not. Too many firefighters, no signal gets through, the seed stays dormant. Not enough, too many ROS, the seed burns from the inside. Just the right balance and germination is launched. Once this signal is given, other enzymes activate like molecular keys that open the box and break the storage proteins into usable pieces. The seedling uses them to build its first leaves, its first roots, until it can feed itself through sunlight and photosynthesis. Seeds germination is not a simple phenomenon. It's a living system of remarkable intelligence, precisely dosing its own chemical signals to wake up at exactly the right moment. Once produced, seeds have two possible destinies. The first destiny, they are planted, and then everything we just described arrives. Dormancy lifts, the chemical signals fire, the storage proteins open up, and a new plant is born. The cycle begins again. The second destiny, they ends up in feeding or for human on our plate. And there our body does exactly the same work as the seed's enzymes. It breaks those proteins down to absorb them and build its own. If you want to understand how that works in detail, I refer you back to the first episode of this series, where we reviewed together what a protein is and how our body uses it. What is fascinating here is the journey. The seed made those proteins for its own survival. We use them to build ours. It's a transfer of life from one species to another. And optimizing these proteins, their quality, their digestibility, quantity, to feed more people better with fewer resources, that is a major research question today. Before we finish, here are the 3 takeaways from this episode. The first point, storage proteins. The seed is a biological box that produces and stores proteins during its formation. The second point, dormancy. A seed can suspend all biological activity. It dehydrates, hardens, and waits. The third point, germination is an ultra-precise cascade of chemical signals. And when the balance is perfect, life starts. In the next episode, I will explore those phenomena even further. Dormancy, germination, and seed physiology with someone who has devoted his scientific journey to it. So stay tuned. In the sum scale, for those who are not familiar, it is our way to measure the difficulty level of those videos from 1 very simple to 10 dramatically complex. So for this episode, I give 2 out of 10. Let me know in the comments if you agree with that. Thank you and see you soon.